Live now. Right, welcome everybody. Welcome those who are listening. I'd like to welcome Imbibe Live Online, one of the first ones at this event, and to thank Pascal Santerre for being one of the sponsors. I'm Stephen Meinl, founder of Moving Food, and over the next hour we're going to be focusing on the role of technology, back of house, front of house, we hope, as our industry plans to open up their venues on the 4th of July, Saturday. We hope for sunshine. With me today is Emmy Lawrence from Backyard Cinema, Glenn Murphy, who is owner of Cass Pub and Kitchen and manager of, and is fighting fires like the rest of us. Siobhan Fagan, who is from Pizza Express. So welcome everybody. Difficult times. We've all probably now, if we're in the alcoholic side of our business, and certainly our restaurants, have started downloading the 41 pages of government ruling on what we're allowed to do, from no hand dryers, etc. So we're looming up to July the 4th, and we've got lots of issues. Can I just ask a general question then? What areas you've been forced to look at in terms of cashless transactions, the contactless journey that we've been asked to do from ordering, etc.? And are there obvious duty of care issues? So if I could probably ask that to Glenn in the first instance.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're opening from Saturday, so we'll be one of the first cabs off the rank, which will make it both fun and challenging. But yeah, it's going to be tough for us in terms of contactless payments, because there's still going to be some sort of issue with sanitizing PDQ machines, with customers coming in, if there's an issue with their tap, whether they'll have to insert a card, put a pin in. So we've got systems in place to try and eliminate contact between the customer and the staff. But there is obviously going to be those issues that we're going to have to overcome. So we've got, sanitation between each transaction. We've got staff in full PPE to try and keep them safe, to try and keep the customers safe. It's been a challenge to decide whether to go full cashless with a 10-day lead-in time. Obviously, it will be tough for some of our regular customers who we know will usually pay cash or usually not bringing their card with them to the pub. So to go from 10 days before the pub is reopening to go no cash anymore, it does create a real barrier for some of our regular clients who we want to bring back in. So it's managing expectation of customer, safety of customer and staff, and then trying to overcome those little obstacles that we know we're going to have to be dealing with. It could be that we go cashless, full cashless in the future, but to go in 10 days beforehand and just say, nope, that's it, we're going to alienate at least a handful of our regulars that we know will have trouble going to only card payments. So it's been a bit of a juggling act with everything so far, but we're trying to make the best that we can whilst keeping staff and customers' safety at the forefront of the mind. So
very good, very good. Pizza Express, then obviously a larger group, but still similar challenges, you think, Siobhan?
Absolutely. So again, we're encouraging cashless. So we'll have the ability to pay via a mobile website ready for when we reopen for dine-in. We've also got ready being able to browse the menu on your own device, and then we will start to look at and pilot the ability for a customer to order from table as well later in the month. Big operational change for team members though, so a lot to think about. And then of course you've also got to think about, similar to Glenn's point, those customers who aren't able or don't want to interact in that way, and what kind of backup processes you need to have to cope with all customers. So it's definitely going to be an interesting first few weeks, I think, as we all learn how to cope in this brave new world.
Right. Does that cost you a lot of time and effort in terms of communicating that? Because obviously, in Ben's case, it's a handful of staff, forgive me, but in your case, it's thousands of staff, and then getting that message across.
It is thousands of staff. We're not, thankfully, opening all the restaurants on the same day. So we've currently got some restaurants open for click and collect and delivery. we'll open 50 restaurants in the first week, some here in the UK, some in Ireland, who've got a whole different set of rules. So that's been fun. And we'll have to learn as we go and try and stay as agile as possible, which I think honestly is going to be a problem for the rest of the year as situations change and develop, and sort of how we help team members through that, really.
Okay, very good. Emma, you have a different set of criteria and circumstances, because I guess you're not opening till...
Yeah, we sit quite separately to pubs and restaurants, being more of an entertainment venue. But a lot of the measures that we currently have in place already allow for a contactless journey right the way from when customers arrive to when they enter the cinema. 95% of our customers pre-book their tickets online, and especially around Christmas, 100% of our souls are usually typically sold out. So although it is possible to book tickets on site, it's just rarely done. So, and then that, along with the reduction in capacity, I believe that in the coming months, all the tickets will be purchased prior to arriving to site. So the use of the digital tickets and being able to scan them when they arrive, it can all be done at a distance, and then the queue can be managed. So that's not really a concern, but it again then comes down to the concessions and that interaction between handing over the food and the drink items. So, I mean, in terms of contactless payments, in the weeks leading to, we've always offered it as an option, obviously, but in the week leading to our closure, we went completely contactless. Again, the EPOS and the iZettle systems already in place allowed for the smooth transition. And like we said before, that we're all very comfortable with the contactless payment system. It's not new to anyone, so it didn't feel like a massive shift in that. But our duty of care in these instances is to make the customer feel comfortable and trust that we've done everything in our power to safeguard them for those interactions. We've always had a legal obligation to ensure the safety and well-being of our staff and our customers. So now we'll just have to prioritize those elements that are key to that.
I suppose we're all lucky in a way, if there is luck in this next journey, is our customers are trained with contactless. Our customers, to a certain extent, are trained for theatre tickets and cinema tickets and air tickets and rail tickets with QR codes. So, we've got that to fall back on. So it's less of a training or train the puncher to do what we want them to do. And there probably lies advantages for vouchers and all the other stuff that we need to move towards.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, our customers can pre-buy lots of packages online as well. So it's just the training with staff before we open, just how we're going to set it out. Is there a collection point for those pre-bought packages? What is the flow around the building? I think that's more essential than the actual.
I think we're going to find our way around customer flows and reactions and things. Another quick question then, all of you really, probably 1 minute each answer if you've got one, is we've got diverse profiles across our businesses that we're talking to today. We've got diverse profiles of customers in terms of ages and abilities and what their desires are. Are apps a solution, or are there any other aspects of basic technology that we should probably be looking at? Or have we kind of covered that in the previous question? Ben?
I think it does tie into similarities to what we were talking about with cashless transactions and things like that. There will be definitely some of our customers who may not have a smartphone, may not have the capability to scan a QR code when they come in. So we're going to have a fallback set in place for them to just cater to every instance. You get tourists who might be coming across who haven't got a data package on their phone, or who can access the app when they're in the pub. So it will be challenging in that aspect. We're going to have to cater, as we said before, we have to cater to all fallbacks and eventualities, and to make sure that the experience is the same for everyone. That if we go with a more app-based transaction, that we don't alienate people who don't have access to it. We want to have the same experience for all of our customers, and make sure that they can all participate in the same way. So that will be similar in that aspect, yeah, for sure.
Yvonne, you got the same issues. You're nodding your head, agreeing with Ben. I guess we're all facing very similar.
All facing similar issues. We've gone mobile website for our development rather than app to try and get down the barrier of a customer having to download something, because our frequency for some customers is not high enough that I think they would be prepared to have an app on their phone. We're also trying to make that as easy as possible through the use of QR codes on the menu, on the table talkers, so that it's easy for a customer to get to that part of the journey. And then I think it's sort of looking at the new payment technologies as they come and staying current with that. It was great to see the contactless limit increased, but again, you can see what the banks and the kind of payment vendors are going to do in this new world when touching that credit card machine is going to increase, is increasingly going to be more of an issue.
Yeah. Emma?
Yeah, I mean, the use of apps and online menus and things like this is usually something we've completely dismissed, and we prioritize the interaction with the staff members. But finding out about dynamic QR codes and how it will enable us to personalize different menus in terms of location, date, and time, and things like that, I think could be really beneficial to us as a business, because we have very different audience types coming to, say, the Joker on a Tuesday versus Dirty Dancing on Friday. So if we were to able to use dynamic QR codes in this instance and tailor the advertising or the packages that are available to them, that could be interesting. But again, I don't think it's something that we could easily go in with solely. Like, we'd still have to have the physical menus.
Yeah, I think you're going to frustrate. One of the questions that's come up, which is a very good one, of course, is a certain set of the population, and some people aren't going to want to download a specific app, which is going to frustrate, and as we know, in some location, basements or outside in some areas, reception to download an app frustrates a lot of customers. So I think that's going to be a challenge in some cases.
Yeah, if it was a separate app, I think the benefit of QR codes is that you just need a QR reader. You don't need a certain.
And all modern phones you don't have to download an app for a QR code. Most of the modern phones have a QR code on it.
If you've got a smartphone, you tend to be able to.
I was on the phone very briefly. I was on the phone last night with a friend of mine in Chicago, and they have an outside facility, burger and beer essentially, and music, which they're still allowed to do. And the customers are putting $20 bills and $10 bills into clear envelopes and sealing them. And somebody's collecting those with plastic with PP gloves on. And you're getting a $10 package or a $20 package. So 2 burgers and 2 beers for $20, and 1 burger and one beer for $10. So where there's a will, there's a way. I guess you have to almost come up with anything. So. Okay, very good question from that individual as well on apps, because I think you have to look at QR codes, and there are some apps out there and some brands that are still demanding you download, and I think that's going to frustrate people. Siobhan, you represent one of the I guess one of the big high street brands, and assume you've got a bigger and more robust budget than, say, Ben does, and certainly Emma. Technology investment. Can you share anything or any system or anything that you've seen that we've not considered or that we should be looking at? Obviously, it's difficult because with the changing environment and government rulings, after Saturday, the rules could change yet again, or different systems will apply for different rules and regulations. Is there anything quick and dirty that you've seen that you would say for the independent should look at?
Well, we've implemented something for our employees, which is sort of like a health app, so that ability for an employee to kind of self-declare their health before they come to work. So managers got a quick view of if anybody's experiencing symptoms. We're looking at our Wi-Fi data to see if we can use that to try and gauge how many people are in a venue at a particular time. In Ireland, there's a limit to how many people can be in a restaurant. So we've kind of thought about how we can use that here as well. We're starting to look at our reservation system. So obviously, we think that everybody will start to book way more than they used to because people will get used to planning. But then how can we help some customers who want to come maybe more immediately with the use of virtual queues and so on. So you know you're going to have a table in 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then the point you touched on before, really, for teams and managers, you know, first of all, they've just had a period of time away from their restaurants and their bars. We're asking them to come back, you know, a whole load of new processes to take on board and learn. So we're really looking at both platforms that will help us with that kind of quick communication of a change in process, but also using video a lot more for training techniques and so on, to try and make it easier. And then making that video available to team members so they can use it on the handheld when they get into the venue. So it's, for me, it's like, how do you now support a period of what I think is going to be constant change as the rules move about?
And I suppose for clusters in your business, the area manager, the advantage these days, I was talking to Andrew Saunders from Harrison Hall Cafe Nero, you know, communicating is somewhat easier now with Teams and Skype and Zoom, because at least you can, you know, show things and visually show things and point things out, which, you know, a few years ago weren't available. So there are some tools, I think, that you can work towards.
Exactly, and then also, like, so you can get to the managers quite easily, but how do you get down to the team members as well?
Yeah, that's the difficult bit. Yeah, you either have to pay them to sign in. You have to either pay them to sign in or whatever. So there's a lot of questions around this app download, and I think the key message is, you know, it will be frustrating if you're developing your own app, but as we said, there's QR codes which don't need downloading, and there are other systems out there. So I think, you know, venue to venue, you just have to get that message across to the customer, don't you? I think.
Yeah, or mobile websites, which again don't require, you know, the use of a dynamic QR code with a mobile website doesn't require any sort of download.
Yeah. Glenn, just moving ahead then, in terms of worrying about back of house and analytics and staff honesty and GPs and you know, spillage and ullage and all the other stuff that we have to worry about in our lovely industry. Have you noticed anything that you have to bypass, or have you still considered the controls in your business as this new world starts? I mean, everything from CRM analytics and data. Is that priority in terms of security an issue from your end, or is it more important to get the customer fed and out the door?
I mean, initially it is going to be more about creating a safe space for the customers to feel that they can come into the pub and you know, be in good hands and being taken care of. It's going to be a little bit difficult for us to gauge analytics and things, because as it stands right now, we don't know. Even trying to guess how busy we'll be this coming weekend is a little bit hit and miss. We don't know if people are going to want to flock back in, if not, people aren't going to feel comfortable with sitting inside, whether they want to get a takeaway, buy some cans and bottles and take them home with them. So at the moment, we are sort of playing a little bit of wait and see, just in a sense that we have to see what customer feeling and sentiment is. But obviously, it will play into it big time moving forward. We are expecting you know, a smaller amount of customers coming in during the week, with people working from home as opposed to working in offices nearby. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get analytics about when people will actually want to come to the pub. So beforehand, we could have gauged Friday lunchtime will be a difficult one. Thursday, Friday evening will be a big one. So we'll get extra staff in. Now it could be Monday night, could be the big one. We're not sure. So there is a little bit of wait and see, just so that we can gauge customer sentiment. But at the moment, our big focus is ensuring that the customers and staff, front of house and back of house staff as well with our kitchen, are in safe hands, are being looked after, and that we can provide as close to normal in experience as we can these days. It's not going to be like an old pub experience, but yeah, we've got to try and ensure that everything is safe and helpful to people who are exploring the brave new normal. Yeah.
Very good. Emma, for you, anything that you had to give up, or you know, the difficulty you're going to have in how you see it working for you?
I mean, the difficult for us was the capacity, and obviously the reduction. We are having to reduce it by more than half. So we have always valued and prioritized speed of service anyway, because we usually, I mean, for some screenings, we have to seat up to 400 people and serve them at the bar within a 90-minute window.
Mm.
So we have to be as efficient on the bar as possible. So our staff are quite trained in that. Now, with the reduction in capacity, I think we haven't been able to reduce the window time for certain reasons. So we will actually see an increase of time to be able to serve. So we're hoping that with the bartenders, especially being able to serve people slightly slower, they can take more care when serving, and then just ultimately,
I suppose a bit like a football match, you just have to line up the pints of Guinness and the pints of lager and the glasses of wine, and to a certain extent, if you want to serve a shed load of people in a short period of time from prepayment and everything, I guess you have to change some rules, don't you?
We tend to be pop-up events anyway,
Yeah.
so we offer quite a limited menu. Everything's in cans. In the main bar we do draft beer, but in the cinemas it's predominantly prepackaged and easy things that are sold in packages. So it's easy to order. It's easy to serve.
I think it's interesting, isn't it, Ben and Emma? I think from Vaughn's point of view, and I was in the big pizza chain many years ago, senior level in Pizza Hut, and sat on hotel boards over the years. That's why I've got grey hair. It's difficult to turn these bigger ships around because you've got operations issues, you've got HR involved, you've got marketing worrying about the customer, you've got big sites and lots of sites, you want less tables, less outside seating and stuff. So it's a challenge in everything you look at, whether you're a single owner or you're in different disciplines. If you look at Market Hall and you look at those kind of community-led venues, food halls and stuff, it's a challenge for all of us. It's going to be difficult. I think a difficult journey over the next few weeks. Thank you very much. More questions coming up, mostly around the app, so we'll continue going. We've got experts here with Emma with the outside venue type of thing. We've got the dining out issues to deal with. We've got the pub visits. We've got attending outdoor events, human activity, and whether you're in a Pizza Express or whether you're in a pub or whatever. Most of it is around socially enjoying it, the chatter of the noise, etc. Does the group see technology in the COVID control mechanism? It will be detrimental to that experience or expectation, do you think? Start with Ben.
I mean, it will definitely have a big impact in the pub sense. It's going to, I think, it will once people are working in the office again, I think it'll have a big impact on after work drinks. I think it will. There'll be a lot less people wanting to just stop in for a quick pint, and instead we'll be booking online and making a reservation. Our one night out a week now might not be to a restaurant, it might be to a pub to have a few pints. So it will have an effect in that instance. Moving to table service is obviously going to eliminate the old stand at the bar and have a chat with the staff. So it will be difficult in pubs, especially, to keep the vibe of what the old pub feel is. We obviously prioritise with our staff, good service and customer engagement, and so I think that's going to have to continue as a person-to-person level. But things like face shields, we've gone with face shields instead of masks because obviously you can still interact with that. It might be a plastic shield, but you can still see a person's face. You can still have a proper interaction. So there are going to be little barriers for us to hurdle and to get it through. But at the end of the day, we need to try and keep that customer interaction.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Ben, but I solely, like all of us, because I'm hearing this from other industry, whether you're in the coffee business or you're in the pizza business or you're in the fine dining business or the casual dining business, the customer's coming back to a shrunken menu and a less of an offer, because clearly we have to manage, the back bar can be less gins, less beers, and less things on the menu. So I guess that applies to apps or menus that are printed online. You're not going to find the same selection in some cases. Is that true to the way you're looking at it from a chain restaurant point of view, Siobhan?
We will have a slightly reduced food menu.
Mm-hmm.
especially for the first few weeks, and we'll continue to monitor and look at that. That's both from a kind of customer point of view, but also from a team member point of view, because obviously we've also got to help the pizziolas in our kitchens be able to work alongside each other and maintain social distancing, which is a whole other problem in itself. Our drinks ranges we'll probably be able to maintain because they're
because you're not as extensive as a back bar or a pub.
Yeah.
And Emma, you run on a fixed kind of menu anyway, don't you? You don't have a 10 gins and 5 Fever Tree tonics, and I should get paid for that quote, shouldn't I, for raising Fever Tree's.
It depends which site we're on. If we're operating from the middle of a field where we've just built the marquees and have to get all the stock there, then yes, it is quite limited. But in Capital Studios, where we're based now, we have, over Christmas, we have up to 4 bars on site. So we have the one annex bar, which is solely Gypsy Hill beers. So yes, it's a limited offering there. In the cinemas, the menus are identical and limited, but then in the main bar where you can get food from the vendors, we have quite the range, quite a normal range, and all the draft beers. So that one will sit slightly differently. But in terms of going back to that question, there is a risk of losing the staff to customer interaction, and as Glenn was saying, we always endeavour to provide an exceptionally high level of customer service. So it's not really something that we're willing to compromise on. So, but we've always, in terms of tech and the queuing into the cinemas, we've always been quite a tech-savvy company. We've used things like automatic doors and holographic air hostesses on screen and actors saying, certain bits. So we can use that to our advantage, especially now, to guide people through this space in a fun, interactive, engaging way, while still relaying all these safety measures. And whether we now incorporate that through the bar and extend it, I think is something that we'll definitely look at.
Yeah. Because the interesting thing, from the politicians and the press point of view, and it's behind that 41-page document that I mentioned earlier that you have to download and read, is, of course, and Siobhan mentioned it, which is right, is we have duty of care to our employees. We didn't build these outlets with, big cellars, and cellars are downstairs and toilets are downstairs, and we've got back of house issues in terms of how we prepare our food and how we serve, and those in themselves we have to be responsible for the employees. And that makes it difficult, I think, no matter how much tech you put in to try and increase the volume at the front of house. As we know this industry well, the back of house is a responsibility. And equally, the changing times in when suppliers can come, keeping the product safe, do you sanitize it when it comes in the back door? How do you store it? All of that has massive implications, whether you're a single site then or you're a multi-site. It adds costs and it adds challenges for all of us, I think. So I think you're right. A lot of operators have done the right thing, shortened their menus, wait and see, be flexible, and see what the customer is. I mean, the difficult thing for me is as we all know, this business, we've been in it a long time, is how that customer interacts. There's a bit of posing always goes on in restaurants. You're better than the next table. There's the family commitment. There's the noise levels, the chatter, the banter, the people coming and going, the people watching, depending on where the menu is. And that's a human interaction. If you start controlling that, I think one loses that spontaneity and the joy of going out. And that's the fear I have, that we don't put too much in place, control-wise or otherwise. And in the early days of the panic, when 3 or 6 months ago, people were posting pictures of restaurants full of plastic screens and masks and plastic masks and high-risk suits and God knows what. It is going to be a very interesting time. We are on technology, so is there anything marvelous out there in terms of facial recognition? We talked a little bit about apps and everything else, but prepayment vouchers. You've got this customer journey versus what the operators are willing to accept or actually can implement. The good old expression, brave new world. It's difficult to judge, isn't it, of what is out there. I mean, around the world, the great thing about social media, or the bad thing about social media, is there's loads of postings of we're doing this and we've done this, or we're trialing that. I mean, I think we probably all sat and watched the little glass igloos in Amsterdam, where people were supposed to sit inside an igloo and be served through the door of the hatch. Is anything? Have you looked at anything along those facial recognitions or lines or technology that says we're going to protect both back of house and front of house, or do we have enough in place, do you think? Sorry, yeah.
No, go on.
So I've looked at some of the thermal temperature stuff. That's definitely something that we'll keep an eye on. I think as well now our focus is on, because obviously everything we're doing is going to be more expensive to operate, right? The additional labor you need, the additional checks, the time it's going to take to open up a restaurant. So even more so now, what can we do to remove the pain and the burden of the processes? So we've started to look at things like IoT, which is interesting to me, around kind of temperature checks and understanding if equipment's operating as it should. I think definitely we'll also have to look at our reservation platforms, because it's one thing when the sun's shining to expect customers to maybe stand outside your restaurant and wait for a table, but come November, customers are not going to want to do that. So how we kind of enable those spur of the moment decisions to go out and still have that surety that you're going to have a table at the right time is something we're thinking about as well.
Okay. Emma, you were about to say something, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we're quite a small business. So as for new cutting edge technology, it's not something that is in the budget or something we are looking at. We're looking at just redefining the processes that we currently do. And again, with the reduction in capacity, it will leave certain team members free to do other stuff, and our team is quite flexible as it is. So whether now people are more back of house than front of house, there might just be a change in shift patterns and things like that. But I'm confident we can make it work with what we've got, rather than all the new technology. But we do sit at an advantage by only opening in September. So I think that over the next 2 months, we'll see changes again, and we can very much follow what other people are doing and learn from other businesses. So our view might change completely in 2 months' time, but for now, we're hoping to not have to implement.
Once you start checking the consumer, your customer that comes through the door, and how do you legally, if someone's temperature has risen, how do you legally close the site down or stop production, or and obviously for yourselves now and Ben, assumably you've got the same thing. It might be on a wish list, but it's not financially practical or even practical to run it at this stage, is it, Ben?
Yeah, well, similar to what Emma was saying, like we are a small independent. So in terms of having one site that we're running, it's tough for us to go, all right, we're going to spend all this money to implement a new app or to take this technology into play. In a month and a half's time, the guidelines may change again. Everything is still moving at a rapid pace. So it's tough for us to jump in with both feet and invest in something that could be a big outlay for us money-wise as well, to find that 6 weeks down the line, something else better has come out, or that's completely superfluous now what we've invested in. So similar to what Emma's saying, we're trying to make sure the experience, we can work within the parameters and the technology that we have now without having to dish out a lot of money for a new cutting edge technology that could change in a few months' time. So
I mean, there's a question on, someone's posed a question to Emma specifically, but I think we've answered it. But given that your venue is so experimental, how do you keep that customer experience but integrated, adding tech? Well, that's the issue we all face, isn't it, for all of us? How do you get that customer experience there without putting in a load of barriers? Technology can sometimes put barriers in place and ruin the experience.
Yeah, exactly. But as I say, we'll have to incorporate it in the ways that we do. I think making the experience itself, by reducing the group sizes, or having customers led via interactive screens and ways like that, we can incorporate it into the experience itself much more confidently than we can, with temperature checks or things that we don't understand ourselves. In terms of the experience, we're very confident that we can make that, we can keep that safe and fun. But we also just want to understand what the consumer wants. I think from Saturday, we'll be doing lots of visits to other places to see, how they are interacting with the new processes and procedures, and ask them what they would like to see in these kind of things. But yeah.
And I think, the challenge, and it is a real challenge, is exactly that. How will the consumer react? What will they do for us? Clearly, you've got the issues of discretionary income, people being furloughed, people coming back, maybe not, the jobs aren't there, people working from home. If you look at some of the big sandwich brands that are being, open technically for takeaway, their sales haven't hit anywhere near they wanted. Coffee shops had queues when the weather was good, and then those fell away, and yet some of the other coffee shops are doing reasonably well. So I think it depends on where that location is, how loyal your customer is to you or the brand, and whether at the end of the day, as you're right, is after Saturday, whether they have a good experience and whether they come rolling back in. I think we have put up with a lot as customers. We've been very loyal and saluted and done all the right things mostly. I think a lot of us are getting frustrated with the whole process, age related to a certain extent, weather related. You only have to look at Bournemouth and South Sea and those kind of areas. So it's going to be an interesting, I think it's going to be an interesting development, this for the future. We clearly, one of the questions that's been asked, and clearly, we said we'd address it, but I think we've covered it, was thank God, that we've got some contactless history, we've got some QR codes happening, we've got PDQ machines, and we've got some solutions out there. If we hadn't had those, we'd have faced some real difficulty, I think.
Kind of have already trialed it, yeah.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of reasonable tech in there. Are any of you? Is that any of that is manageable? Obviously, if even if it's down to contactless, when you think about it, I guess it has to be sanitized even when they touch the card. So PDQ machine, and if you're putting in PIN numbers with your finger, there are those issues. Have you addressed that in all of your operations? Have you looked at that?
We're still looking at it. I've seen a lot of places have the machine behind the perspex screens without the use of the PIN. So, but again, my experience with technology is that it doesn't always work. So if we've gone completely contactless and we're on a pop-up event and the Wi-Fi goes down, does it mean that we completely lose revenue? Do we stop serving entirely, or do we take cash payments? I think it's hard to make a decision that's black and white. I think you have to, we still have to offer flexibility. And so I think the key really is going to be the hygiene and how we clean things and how we do it after every transaction. And yeah, we'll be labor intensive on our side, but I think that's just the road we'll have to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Siobhan, sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I was just going to say, and with us, we're not going the route of plastic screens, but obviously going the route of table service. You're going to have the server going to the table with a PDQ in hand, even if it's contactless touch. It's going to need to be sanitized each time. So, as you said, we've got to work within the parameters and then have a backup in case the technology goes down. We had a Visa failure a couple of years ago that I still remember because it happened on a Friday night. Visa went out all through England, and so all of a sudden it was.
That's a good point, man. It's a very good point.
We've got to have that backup plan.
And assumably there must be an official number that somebody watches or looks at, that the number of times where contactless doesn't work, or you use one credit card and it doesn't accept your credit card and you have to get another one out of your purse or your wallet. At some point, do you just give the food away, or what? How do you teach the employee to deal with that? Because the customers really get frustrated.
Technology doesn't always work, whether it's a Wi-Fi failure, or as you said, a Visa failure, or we've had banking failures. Life's not like that.
No, I know exactly. And so, that's going to be frustrating on both sides of the counter, isn't it? Unfortunately. But Glenn, that's a very good point. Fingers crossed we don't have a bloody Visa lockdown.
That's the last thing we need, opening everything back up. Visa
I hope credit card companies have realized on Saturday there's suddenly going to be thousands of people using cards that haven't used them for the last 3 months. That's slightly worrying. July the 4th, it's coming. We're planning. have we done any numbers where we think how many do you think can afford to go out? Will they choose to go out? How many staff are going to come back? You've got all the issues around supplier demand and how much stock do you put in? Do you run out of stock? Staff scheduling issues. The business obligations. I think it's very easy and very positive for MPs in the newspapers to say, "Oh, well, welcome back. We're all opening," but all of those are a challenge, aren't they? So, have you got anything in place? Obviously, you've tried to cover everything, but is there anything from a technology point of view that you're glad you had in terms of staff scheduling or signing in or signing out, or is that not the luxury, Glenn, you have in your outlet?
Yeah, in essence, it is. It's a lot easier to deal with a team of, say, we've got eight front of house staff and 3 back of house staff. So it is definitely easier to do than, say, Siobhan would have dealing with however many thousands that Pizza Express got. And so it has been a benefit in that instance. But even looking at past sales figures, looking at previous order scheduling, previous order amounts, it's a bit hit and miss, really. We are going to schedule, we're going to rotor on an extra person in the hope that it's very busy, but that could be weather dependent as well. So in terms of using our past sales figures and technology that we have to gauge what will happen, it isn't going to be a massive help on day one, because we don't know what's going to happen on day one. If it's raining, people may not come out because they might not get a table. If the sun's out, we might get swamped because everyone wants to stand outside. Yeah, it's unfortunately for us, because we've only got the one site to gauge. Yeah, a little bit hidden.
But clearly for all of us, when you talk around the industry, the whole issue of cleaning tables and a member of staff being a hostess with the mostess, if you like, and bussing tables and just cleaning off tables more thoroughly, and the customer watching that is a cost. And I assume for you, Siobhan, with as many outlets, is a big number at the end of the week.
It will be a big number, and so we have created some central forecasts that we've managed to give to the sites that are opening with a view on what the labour model will look like. But it's anybody's guess. Will we get a lot of kind of pent up demand in the first few days? Will customers continue to come out, or will they come out for that initial visit and then decide that actually, for whatever reason, it's all too hard, or it's not the experience they were expecting? So understanding the long-term impact, I think, is something that's going to be really tricky. And then, there is no doubt that it's going to be a more expensive business to run as a result of the additional cleaning and the additional steps we're going to have to put into the service journey to make sure everybody stays safe.
Yeah. And Emma, same kind of answers, I suppose, to you in a certain way in terms of how you run your business.
Yeah, I mean, we do again sit on an advantage with all of our tickets going on sale from next month or from tomorrow. So we will have a month or two to prepare in line with the ticket sales, because yes, we don't know at all. So there's a lot of stuff that we haven't started even preparing because we want to see what road it's going to go down. But then after that, after the first few weeks, will those customers, like you say, return, and what will they want? I think it is. We're going in quite blind, so we have to wait and see.
There's a question that's come up, which is quite, I guess this is driven at Emma and Ben to a certain extent. If you don't have any tech already, how do you start?
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, in the last 3 days, I think within just looking at our pub Twitter account, I've had, I think, 6 different track and trace accounts, follow us and say, "Oh, we're a new track and trace app that will help you to do this." So it's this sudden bombardment of all new technology, all new things that we need to look at. It's really difficult. As I said, for us, it's not a case where we can give them all a try or invest money into each different one and experiment with which one's going to be the best to use for us long term. So we're taking a little bit of a wait and see approach. We're going to do it as much as we can in-house ourselves to start with, and then if one market front runner appears, then we can obviously invest in that once there's some proven results. But it is really tough because, as I said, it's a bombardment. All of a sudden, we've gone from 0 to 100 in the space of 9-10 days now. So we need to be really careful and really selective about what we go with, because obviously, as I said, we don't have the chance to trial various different approaches or various different apps or various different technologies. Right. So, yeah.
I think there's another good question here. Is how can we use tech to attract people to the venues, and not just once they're there? That's kind of what we've touched on. People arrive and there's tech in their way. How happy they're going to be, and I don't think there's any piece of tech out there that's suddenly going to make thousands of people come to your door. I think it's suck it and see, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. We've invested in some technology to help make sure that our listings are correct, because making sure on Google that you come up with the correct opening times, and there's maybe a thought process that Google will move to showing when venues are busy and less busy, so making sure that we can feed into that data. But apart from communicating to our existing customer base and explaining to them what the venues are going to look and feel like and what we've managed to put in place to make the experience as great as possible, I'm not sure that there's any magic piece of tech, as you say, that will suddenly attract a lot of customers to your venue. It's about working with the databases that you've already got.
Yeah, I think it's about being realistic in setting their expectations of how it's going to differ, especially for all of our returning customers. We do need to highlight the differences in experience whilst highlighting what we hope to keep the same. So I think the communication and the advertising around that obviously will be on tech, but I don't think it's relied solely on the tech itself. It's the message that we convey, and it's the process that we put into place on the day and how we actually manage it.
And I think you're right. And one of the questions, a few questions have come up actually about speed of service. Will tech slow things down? And they may slow things down temporarily because we have to protect both our customers and our staff. So inevitably, I think there's going to be some frayed patience levels and understanding as we open these things across the country.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also think there's an element of if a customer's in control of certain elements, so being able to pay themselves via a mobile website, for instance, might not be any faster, but it's a bit like the McDonald's kiosks, isn't it? If you're in control of the process of ordering your own, Big Mac, it feels faster. So there's something about that element of control and the perception that you're not having to wait for something because you can kind of get on with it yourself. So I do think there's opportunities for it to help and enhance the customer service.
And Emma, you mentioned QR codes. There's a question, are they short-lived? Are they just a COVID thing? Clearly they're not short-lived because the airline industry has invested in them for tickets and theatre's done it. And you only have to look at Heinz ketchup and mayonnaise and there's QR codes because they had video content and they can be emotional towards the brand, and they've got I think they've got a bright future. And I guess out of the next few weeks will prove whether they work entirely in our industry and they're a solution. And clearly, any tech is going to frustrate a few people. One of the questions that's come up, which is quite interesting, and I'll ask Siobhan to answer it first. Actually, is how are we going to protect our staff to teach the punters to social distance? How are you going to manage a crowded pub? Are you going to be able to tell people to leave? Do you have to separate them? What's our legal right and everything else? I mean, that's bound to have come up in your conversations, Siobhan, I would have thought internally.
Probably not quite as much as it would for a pub, to be honest, because we don't have the bar areas as such. So we will be able to maintain a level of social distancing by the placement of the tables. But the other point around the staff and making sure, there's in the guidelines, the amount of kind of talk time they should have with customers, making sure that's limited. And then particularly in the kitchens, really helping the pizzaiolists understand in what was a very social and together kind of environment that they've got to maintain that distance is something we put a lot of effort into.
I guess it's more difficult for Emma ultimately when you get open and then Glenn, is it? Glenn,
Yeah.
asking you, I suppose you've had to think about this, and
it's going to be it's one of the main things that we've thought about. So we've obviously we're moving when we open on Saturday. We're moving from traditional order at the bar. It's going to be full table service for our inside customers. We're not going to have any standing areas. So, I mean, that's how we can control inside. At least we've redone our table plan so there's social distance between each of the tables and between customers who are on those tables as well. So we've taken steps to try and do as much as we can to prevent any customers from breaking that social distance. But as I think the question said, it's tough after someone has a few pints to control that. So it's about keeping staff on staff training up to scratch. It's as I said before, a bit easier for us with a smaller team, but I think I said to the guys the other day, we've also almost got to go back to square one and retrain more similarly to a restaurant staff would be, at least in the short-term future, because that's how it will be operating, full table service, no standing.
Yeah.
So it's taking a different approach and trying to minimise or at least help keep customers within bounds of what social distance should be. Yeah, as well as the staff.
Sorry, Glenn. Yeah, Emma.
Well, we hope to just be really clear on the messaging when you're on site, in terms of the one-way systems, and we hope to have very clear rules in place. So very perhaps 5 or less simple, clear rules that we would hope and people would abide by, with the understanding that when you're on site, you should adhere to these rules. And if people don't, especially after they've had a few drinks, we would treat it as if they were acting badly on those drinks anyway, and we would perhaps refuse service like we would ordinarily. But our customers are usually very respectful. They're respectful of each other. They're respectful of the staff. So not too worried about it.
I think I'm not overly worried and confident, because they've had to deal with retail, they've had to deal with local convenience stores, they've had to go for walks and distance. And it's not like they can leave Glenn's pub and go and find another pub where that rule is different, or they can drink late, or they can go to a nightclub and drink later because we've kicked them out of the pub. Or in Siobhan's case, they've had too many glasses of red with the pizza. I think we're all in it together, and wherever they go, whether they go to an event, a pub, a chain restaurant, or a coffee shop, they're going to be faced with the same issues. So hopefully they understand it's not our fault. It's just the way it is now. If you want to go out and entertain yourselves, I think. So,
I think people are getting used to a slower pace of life. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. I think we can still provide our service and provide our entertainment without all running wild around the site. I don't think keeping 2 meters distance or 1 meter distance from another person is all that impactful. I think all the smaller, we again are lucky that our venue is quite large. I think the smaller restaurants especially are going to.
I think the other thing too is our industry over the years has been very open, and we've shared lots of technical thoughts, and people talk within words. We've always looked for an edge, and we've spied on our competitors to a certain extent, but we've shared a lot. And I think out of this, if anything, I think Glenn raised the point, if anything new comes up, I'm sure we'll spot it pretty quickly, and we'll understand from other people how they've handled certain situations. Venue, clearly, we know alcohol can make people either happier or grumpier. So there is a challenge when you've had too much to drink for all of us, I think. So I think those are challenges that we're going to face.
Yeah, and I think people will just forget, won't they, if they've had a few drinks? I don't think they'll do it maliciously with intent. So I think just a few gentle reminders. And
the big challenge for all of us is the economics. Whether this will work, whether we can make money, whether suppliers are going to understand that, and that's the most difficult and the worrying thing. I think is going to keep us awake at night. Will we have our empires? Will we have a job? Will the venues exist while we go through this thing? And that's been raised in a couple of questions here. So I don't know. One of a couple of questions here: will tech save the day? I'm not sure it's going to totally save the day.
I think it can make it easier, but no, I don't think we'll find the answers just in tech.
I don't think it'll save the day, but I do think it'll be here to stay. So if you look at other markets around the world and the way that consumers use tech, I think once customers become used to, maybe booking a bit more online or paying in a different way, that they will just continue to do that even post this current kind of situation. So I think it will have a long-lasting impact, but I don't think it will save the day.
Well, that's a very good point, because if you look at other countries, certainly in Asia,
yeah,
cashless society, even in Africa, Nigeria has got less cash than any country in the world, I think, because people have been using contactless and mobile payment and downloading for a long, long time. Clearly, facial recognition is all over Asia, and the Square, everybody's heard of Square in America, I'm sure, where they recognize your face and you prepay and walk up to the counter. Maybe in Europe, we feel that's spying on us and our personal liberties at stake. But I think to stay safe, that some of those rules are going to be thrown out the door to a certain extent. If we want to continue where we were before, we're going to have to rely on trust. The tech is held safe, I think, to a certain extent.
I think it may not save the day, but it'll certainly help with consumer confidence, at least in the initial part. It'll make customers feel a bit more safe and a bit more confident with leaving the house. Some people may not have been out of their house for 3-4 months now. So yeah. If it can provide a little bit more safety, then that's good for both the customers and for us in the long term.
We're coming to the end here, and there's been some great questions. I noted I called you Ben at the beginning, Glenn, so I owe you an apology. Sorry, I was on the phone.
Called much worse in my time, so that's fine.
Ben from Source Market this morning, so I do apologize. But you've been called worse things behind the counter in your pub, probably.
You did exactly right.
Are there any last words then? Anybody have any great words of advice or anything you'd like to close the session with? Some good questions from outsiders listening. Thank you very much. Last one here. This is a good one. I think we've got a couple of seconds left. Surely you're going a long way from Amazon Go style bars, particularly when you actually need someone to serve you. We're not at robotic stage yet. We still require human beings. I don't think we're advocating that in any of the things we've said. So I think tech is wonderful, but if it slows things down, and you're still going to need a human being, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And therefore, you're going to have to train them in a new way. Yeah. Okay. Let's just we're coming up to the end of the session. Let's just see. We've got another one here. What's the longevity of this tech and investment? Is it going to only be used now? And do you think in venues and customers it will drift away after post-lockdown? Siobhan's shaking her head. No, you think it's here in some format to stay, as we said earlier.
I definitely do. Having seen my 70-year-old parents start to use Zoom and FaceTime, and now that's the only way you can communicate with them. They've stopped answering the landline. Then, yeah, I think once people get used to new ways of doing things, it sticks.
Yeah. Glenn?
Yeah, the best elements or the most helpful elements will certainly stick through. We may not have all the same apps or the same technology that we launch off with, but whichever ones prove to be the most beneficial will carry over and help us in the long term for sure.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. It certainly won't be everything, and I think over the next few months we have a lot to learn. But if something helps, if it's beneficial, then absolutely, why wouldn't we keep it? But if something's detrimental to the customer interaction or the customer's experience, then no matter how safe it's deemed, I don't think we would want to hinder that experience in any way. So,
okay, very good. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. Big thank you to Emma, Glenn, and Siobhan for their input. It's been very helpful. Certainly to look at it from a larger chain and different disciplines and the challenges we face. This session is available on video, I'm told, and I want to thank Imbibe Live Online. I think it's gone well for us anyway. And thanks for the sponsor, which is Mescal Supplier. And check us out on the website, I think is the correct thing to say. And you've got access to all of us if you want to in terms of further questions. It's up on Instagram, on social media, and the interviews have been very, very helpful. And work-life balance is the new word, isn't it? In terms of entertaining and going out. The impact on all of us, we'll wait and see, guys. Thank you very, very much, and stay safe, as I would say, and hopefully we'll see you if there is on the other side. And when I'm in, I'll come down and see you, Glenn, when you're up and running. Joanne, best of luck on the opening, because I know it's a big challenge when you've got lots and lots. And Emma, we look forward to your future.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.